Hey guys, I'm Dog God Frog Log. Thanks for jumping into the pond today. I'm going to be going over every single card in Hand of the Gods, showing you what's what as you journey through Arena, Ranked, Gauntlet, whatever you're looking for, it's going to be here. Now our first champ is Nu Wa. She's a very consistent leader. Add a Crescent Blade to your hand and reduce its cost by 1 till the end of the turn. This is a Crescent Blade. It deals 1 damage for 1. So for 1 turn, she can cast that for 0. The turn after, it stays in your hand, it still costs 1. Really effective, really easy to play. Just nice, consistent damage. Now here's Contemplation. You'll see right here, it adds 2 Clear Mind spells to your hand. Now these cost 0. What you want to be doing with Contemplation is using it to trigger Imperial Soldiers, Imperial Archers, Guan Yu. Anything that benefits from you playing extra spells each turn is a really good card for Contemplation. It doesn't do much on its own, so without having those cards on board or in hand ready to play, it's not going to be that effective. But it can set you up for some really nice combos. Here's the Crescent Blade, and you don't want to be putting these into your deck since you're already getting them each turn with your leader ability, and you only have 25 slots to mess with. So you really want to make sure that you're putting bigger threats, better combo pieces into your deck. But at 1 for 1, it's right where, perfect baseline stats, it's right where it wants to be. Here's the Jade Boon. Now this gives a friendly unit +1/+0 at the end of your turn. It's a pretty good buff. It's kind of like Tenacity in that the longer the game goes on, the more effective it's going to be. You're probably not going to be using it too much. It's a little bit more effective in Arena, but it is good on somebody like Hu Yi, who really benefits from that extra damage unlocking them down. Next we have Manifold Blade, and this is bread and butter for Beast Nu Wa. Deals 1 damage and +1 additional damage for every friendly beast in play. So this is a really good card. You drop a White Tiger, you have a Fury out, you evolve, anything that has more beasts on the board just ups this damage. You're often getting at least 2, if not 3, 4, 5 damage just at 1 mana. So really good card. You'll see it pretty often, so keep your eye out for it. Don't play right into it. Recursive Vitality is the next card. It gives a god +1/+0. When you play a god, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. At first glance, this isn't that powerful. You're probably thinking, hey, why am I not running Jade Boon instead? But Recursive Vitality is really good because Nu Wa wants to be playing spells constantly to trigger her Imperials, to trigger Guan Yu. And you can drop this on Hu Yi. You can drop this on just every single god that you play to give them just a little bit of extra power. It's really good. Silence is the next card. Probably one of the cheapest silences in the game. It's just a straight silence. Silence a unit or summoning sound. If they drop Heavenly Agility on their tower, if they play something big and buff it, you could just drop this silence at 1. You probably don't want to be running 2, but 1 doesn't hurt. Next is Aftershock. Deal 2 damage to an enemy unit. If the unit is stunned, deal 5 instead. Now you're going to be running into this a lot. Combos really well with Calamity here, with Tusky, any other stuns that you're running. 5 damage is a lot for 2 mana, but 2 for 2, that ain't bad. It's right where you want to be. Calamity, stun all enemies in target column and draw a card. Now you're going to be seeing this pretty often. Column effects, row effects, those are very powerful in Hand of the Gods, and it's hard for enemies to position themselves in a way to effectively avoid them. A lot of times people just forget to line things up, and boom, you got yourself some free trades. It's a stun, and it replaces itself, so it effectively thins your deck while giving you really good trades on the turn. I really like it. You're going to see it pretty often. You should probably be using it yourself. Celestial Guard's our next card. Give a friendly unit immune to enemy spells. Now the power level on this is a little bit low. You're not going to be dodging war cries off units, but you can use it to protect some big threats. Maybe you really want to keep Zhong Kui out. Maybe you've put Jade Boon on something and you want to keep that alive. That's where Celestial Guard comes in. It can be pretty tricky to answer it in Arena if they don't have the silence on a unit. So if they don't have a Hebo to bounce it with, like I said, you have to watch out for those war cries that can still hit it. But it's not a bad card, pretty decent. Emperor's Prize you'll see pretty often. It's a spell, so you can use it to trigger all your spell effects. but you draw a card for every friendly unit in play. So if you're low on the board, you're not going to get much advantage out of this. Often you'll see something like War Behemoth instead for the card draw, since you can play that. Usually get a card or two off of it and still trade out, but at 2 mana, being able to draw several cards at once, it's pretty effective. Next is Invigorate. You're not going to really see this outside of Beast, Nu Wa. Give a friendly unit +1/+1 for each beast that you control. But it's not a bad card. Lets you make a big threat early on. Get in there and get some damage. Get in there and win a trade. It's a pretty decent card overall. Pummel you'll run into every now and then. The damage is a bit low, 1 for 2. But it does give you an extra stun. And stuns are really important. When a unit's stunned, it can't trade back. So you can get in there and do some big damage. Or stall for a little bit if there's something on your side of the board that you can't answer till the next turn. Maybe you're setting up Guan Yu. So Pummel's not too bad. Running more stuns never hurts. You normally see it a lot in Arena, but sometimes if you're playing like Spell Nu Wa in Ranked, you'll run into it there. Rushing Thunder you're going to see pretty often. Deal 1 damage to all enemies. It's pretty consistent. It kills zombies, it kills Bastet's cats, it kills just all sorts of 1/1s. And with Ao Kuang, it's 2 to everything. It does hit the tower, so you can use it to get that last point or 2 of lethal in. And it's just a consistent, good card that's damage scales with how many units they have out. Next is Siphon Mind. You're not going to be running into it too much. There's better options for deck thinning. It does deal 2 damage to your opponent's Summoning Stone, but that's not going to really win you the board. It's maybe if they're at 10 hit points it sets you up for an Inferno, but you wouldn't even be able to Inferno till the next turn. So you don't see Siphon Mind too much. But 2 for 2 and a draw, it's priced right. Next up is Transfusion. Set a unit's attack equal to its health. Now if you play Chang'e, she's a 1/4 archer, then Transfusion's a huge buff to her. But you're probably not going to see this over Recursive Fatality. Recursive Fatality fits into your deck better, and you're constantly replaying it, whereas Transfusion's just a one of and done. So you're not going to get a whole lot of value out of it. It's still weak to the silence and whatnot, but in a pinch, it's a decent pick in Arena. Arcane Conduit. Now this one's a bit tricky. If you have board control, you're not going to be getting a lot of value out of it, but against someone really aggressive like Odin, when they're all up on your tower, you know, 3-4 units on your tower, you drop Arcane Conduit, Spellblade 1 thing or 2 in the back, and everything's dead. So it's not bad, it's not great, it's very situational. You'll see it a lot more in Arena, but some players run it in Ranked, because like I said, it really hurts an aggressive opponent. Causes them to sit out behind it. Be careful, because Bellona can set a unit right outside it, like, you know, 2 tiles away from your tower, and she can attack and then pull a unit back. Using archers and a big bomb, it'll still whittle you down. So it's not as effective against her, but it's overall really good against Odin. Next up is Beckoning Strike. Deal 2 damage and spawn a random 2-cost unit. You're going to see this everywhere. It's a great card. 3 for 2, a little bit low in the damage, but you're getting a random 2-cost unit, so you're getting a lot of points for 3 mana. Normally this is a kill and a drop, and if you're Beast Nu Wa, you pull a beast off this, setting up for your Manifold Blade, triggering your Hyena. It's a pretty good card. You're going to just see it a lot. Definitely pick it in Arena, definitely pick it in Ranked. Next up is Blade Forge. Now, Blade Forge is pretty interesting. It's a structure. It makes a 0/4, so it is weak to things like Aegean Outcast. It's weak to Silence. But every single unit you play is a 1/1 burn spell. So that's pretty good, and you can, if you can manage to get value out of it over several turns, you can usually win a game, but it's very tricky. There's a lot of answers for it. It's the turn it comes out, it's not giving you any threat, it's not protecting itself, so it's a little bit hard to keep it alive and active, but if you can, it's very, very, very effective. Next up is Hebo, and you're going to be seeing Hebo a lot. He's great. 3 mana, same price as the Recall, and he returns an enemy unit to its owner's hand. So you play it, you get an archer. He is a little bit weak at 2/1, but he gets the bounce, and that's normally enough tempo for you just to get in there and do some damage, take control of their spawns. Really like him. you're probably going to see him in Beast and Spell Nu Wa. Any kind of Nu Wa is probably going to be running a Evo. Hu Yi's the next card, and he's really good. Attacks also hit a random enemy adjacent to the target. Now, at first glance, you're thinking, well, that's not that good, is it? You have to think about it because he can hit the Summoning Stone and hit everything around it. So you get Hu Yi out on an empty board, hit him with Recursive Vitality, make him a 3/3. All you have to do is just shoot the tower, and you're going to kill every single solo drop that they're playing. The stronger he gets, the harder he is to contend with. They have to get him off the board quick, or you can just overrun him. Next up is Naza. Now Naza is really interesting. If you played a spell this turn, Naza hits an additional time while attacking. She does swing twice. So if they have Protect on a unit, like let's say they have Protect 1, she's at 2. You play a spell, she's swinging for 4, but she's swinging 2 twice. So on a Protect 1 unit, that's only going to be 2 damage. So you have to keep that in mind when you're figuring out trades when you're calculating how those swings are going to go. It's 2 swings, not just ×2. But she's a pretty good card. At 4 health, she's a little bit hard to take out. She dodges a lot of things like Tusky. And she's pretty consistent. She is a god. She does activate your Recursive Vitality. With Recursive Vitality, she's swinging 6. So that's why Recursive Vitality is just so good. There's so many cards that really benefit from Nu Wa hitting it, and you could just go Hu Yi, Naza, and you're just playing it over and over. Next up is Projection. You're going to see this in every Nu Wa deck. Select a friendly and deal its attack as damage to an enemy unit, excuse me. Now this is really good. Let's say they have a Fury, for 3 mana there's 6 damage. Anything that you play all of a sudden becomes a burn spell, and that's just awesome. You're going to see it all the time. No reason to really not pick it unless you're looking at it like a bomb that you really need in ranked or arena. Next up is Recall. For 3 mana, return a unit to its owner's hand. It's pretty good. It's not as good as Hebo, because Hebo gives you a couple extra points, being a 2/1 archer that hits the board as well. But in combination, this really lets you control the flow of the game. You can use it as a pseudo silence to bounce units that have been buffed, like an Oogway that sat out for a couple turns, a Guardian that you need to reset. Pretty good, fairly priced for what it does. You'll probably run into it fairly often. Next up is Chang'e. Your spells cost 1 less, so she's a little bit weak. She's only a 1/4. Like I said earlier, she benefits from the transfusion. She really benefits from Recursive Vitality, just to give her a little bit of extra oomph. Your spells cost 1 less, so you can play her and then play Recursive Vitality for free. Play any other gods, combo with anything, use all the other extra spell blades in your hand. She's pretty consistent. She does what she does, but without having all those spells in your hand, her value goes way down. So just make sure before you put her in your deck that you can take full advantage of the reduced cost. Next up we have Evolve. Now Evolve's a gamble. It's a gamble. You can hit a Hyena, you can hit a Fury, it's all over the place. It feels great when you're on that turn 3 and you just drop down a 6/6, really hard to answer. But when you spend 4 mana to get a Hyena, or a White Tiger, that's even worse. When you spend 4 mana to get a White Tiger, you're pretty sad just to get that 2-drop. You know, you're really happy when it works, you're really sad when it doesn't, but in Beast Nu Wa, it's super effective. You'll see it sometimes in Spell Nu Wa, because it is a drop plus a spell, so it triggers those effects. Next up is Zhong Kui, and you're going to see Zhong Kui pretty often. Deal 0 damage. He makes a demon bag that deals 0 damage, and this spell gains +1 damage for each enemy unit that dies while you have a Zhong Kui in play. Now that's a war cry, so they can't silence the demon bag by hitting Zhong Kui with the silence. So as long as it's in your hand, it's going to trigger with Zhong Kui on the board. Playing Zhong Kui and then using like a Russian Thunder to kill a bunch of zombies or cats gives you a huge burn spell, and you'll notice it says enemy. It just says deal 0 damage actually. If it says deal 0 damage, if it just says deal damage, or if it says deal damage to an enemy, that can hit the tower. And Demon Bag lethals are the best. They're hilarious. You're going to want to be hitting people with those just to cheer yourself up. Really fun card, really good, 2/4. Hit it with Recursive Vitality and is going to trade with just about every low drop in the game. Ao Kuang, you're going to be running them. You're going to be running 2 of them. Deal +1 damage with every single spell. So your leader ability is 2 for 2, and it gets really hard for them to do things when Ao Kuang's out. Rushing Thunder's 2 to the board. There's so many spells that just benefit from you having Ao Kuang out, and it makes it very hard for them to keep consistent threats out against you. Next up is Da Ji, and she's fairly priced, 5 for a 5/5. She gives a beast +2/+2. But you're not going to see her outside of Beast Nu Wa. If you don't have the Beast to activate her, she's not going to do anything for you. So she's good. She does what she does. Just make sure you have the Beast to play her with. Next up is Guan Yu, and you're going to see him just about everywhere. This guy is so good. He's so good. Whenever you play a spell, deal 1 damage to all enemy units. So like I was saying earlier with Contemplation, you play the Contemplation, you play both the free spells. There's 3 damage to the board for 1 mana. Every single spell blade you have, let's say they have a couple units out, you can just selectively poke things with the spell blade, and it's 2 damage to what you hit with the blade, 1 to everything else. So you can use it to take out several units at once. He's great. If you're looking for legendaries to craft, he's the first one that you should craft, the very first. You definitely want to have Guan Yu. Next up is Xing Tian, and he deploys an axe on and it's only on their half of the board, not on your half. So you can't play passive with it. You need to be a little bit aggressive. You need to be on their side. But he gives any units that end their turn on it +4/+4. Your enemies can interact with it even if they stand on it. It's still going to be on the board, so it's very safe. You always want to be throwing that axe out. I'll see players occasionally who just hold it because you know, you're winning. And they don't do that. Get the axe out. There's no way I can mess with it. I can't pick it up myself. Get the axe out on me. Buff your units. Get in there and do some damage. Xing Tian's real great. Lots of stats at 5 cost. He's very well priced. Next up is Dragon King. This will probably be the last legendary that you craft, but it's still very good. It's 6 for 6 to a unit, and it's going to deal 3 damage to everything else in the same row. You don't have many row effects as Nu Wa. In fact, I think this is your only one, at least for the moment. And they're not going to play around it. They're not really going to be setting up to dodge this just because of how many row effects you normally have. 0. So without the Dragon King, there's nothing for them to worry about. With the Dragon King, you can do a little bit of damage. It normally use it on something like a Fury and then take down, like, I don't know, let's say Hebo, a Guardian, something that's trying to hide in the back. It does do tower damage, so you can use it to win the game. Something that most people don't think about before the Dragon King comes in and swoops them right off the board. Sun Wukong, he's going to be the second legendary that you craft, and he's great. He has 3 forms. He can give himself +2 damage. He can deal 2 damage to all enemies around him and knock back. Or he can double the movement of everything you have on the board, including himself. Now this is great. It's really great. You can use him as like a little Athena with better stats if they're rushed up on you. The double movement works out fantastic because if you're kind of locked in the back of the board, like sometimes happens with Bellona and she's setting up, you drop down your Wukong, you run across the board real quick, and you just wipe everything out. You can use him for lethal to kind of get around any blockers they have. He's really good. You're going to want him. Next up is Jing Wei. She's one of the newer cards, but she's pretty interesting. She spawns a Wind Elemental, which is a 3/3 and gives you a random spell. Never hurts to have an extra spell. 7's a little bit pricey, but she is a 5/4 archer. The 4 health is easy to kill. Lots of 4 and 5 drops that'll just knock that right out of the park. But she is 5 damage on an archer, so there's a lot that she'll kill. Not much that could stand up against her. With the elemental and everything, she's fairly priced, and that elemental can pull you an Annihilation, a Blight, another Dragon King, anything like that. It's really good. And the last card, your biggest finisher for Nu Wa, is Inferno. Deals 8 damage for 10. You're not gonna want to run 2 probably. Probably want more low cost, high value cards. But it's never bad to run 1 up as a big finisher. In Arena especially, it's really hard to get around this because it's easy to deal a couple chunks of damage to him. And getting him down to 8 is a lot easier than getting him down to 0. You get him down to 8, burn a couple draws, boom, game's over. So that's it for Nu Wa. And we're going to break down every single card by Pantheon. So if you're looking for more, just stay tuned. Make sure to check us out on Twitch.